Daniel stared at the email notification, his heart sinking as he read the words. Congratulations to Mark Johnson on his promotion to senior developer. The company-wide announcement included a photo of Mark smiling, confident, shaking hands with the CTO. Daniel closed his laptop slowly, trying to process the information. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. After 5 years at TechVision, with consistently excellent performance reviews and 3 major projects successfully delivered under budget, Daniel had been certain this promotion was his. Mark had only been with the company for 2 years and had needed Daniel's help on multiple occasions to understand the codebase architecture that Daniel himself had helped design. It's fine, Daniel muttered to himself, reopening his laptop. There must be something I'm missing. Maybe my timing was off, or there are skills I need to develop that I'm not aware of. I hope you're doing well. I'd like to schedule some time to discuss my career path and get feedback on areas where I can improve to position myself for future advancement opportunities. The curtness of the reply wasn't unusual for Vanessa, but it still felt dismissive. Daniel added the meeting to his calendar and tried to focus on his current project, a complex API integration that the team had been struggling with for weeks, until he proposed a solution that cut the estimated completion time in half. That night, Daniel barely slept. He prepared a list of specific questions and practiced delivering them in a way that would sound constructive rather than confrontational. He reviewed his last 3 performance evaluations, all of which rated him as exceeding expectations in technical skills, project delivery, and team collaboration. The next morning, Daniel arrived at Vanessa's office precisely at 9 a.m. She was on the phone and gestured for him to sit down without acknowledging him further. After finishing her call, she swiveled in her chair to face him. So you wanted to talk about the promotion, she said, not bothering with pleasantries. Yes, Daniel replied, maintaining his composure. I was hoping to understand what factors went into the decision and what specific areas I should focus on improving for future opportunities. Vanessa leaned back in her chair. Look, Daniel, you're a good developer. Your code is clean, you meet deadlines. But senior roles require more than just technical skills. They require certain leadership qualities, culture fit, the ability to represent the company. Daniel nodded, waiting for specifics. When none came, he pressed further. I understand that. Could you point to specific examples where I've fallen short in those areas? My performance reviews have consistently rated me highly on team collaboration and mentorship. Vanessa's expression hardened slightly. Performance reviews are just one data point, Daniel. There's also the day-to-day observations, the informal feedback. You tend to keep to yourself. You're not as visible as you could be. You know what I mean. Networking, being present, making connections. Mark is excellent at building relationships across departments. People know who he is. He's proactive about getting his name out there. Daniel felt his chest tighten. I've led 3 major projects in the past year. I've trained 4 junior developers. I regularly contribute to our technical documentation and knowledge base. Are those not examples of visibility and leadership? Vanessa's tone became defensive. Those are all expected parts of your job, Daniel. What I'm talking about is going above and beyond. Look, the decision has been made. If you want to position yourself better for the future, you need to work on your networking skills, be more present in meetings, speak up more. Maybe attend some of the company social events. Daniel thought about pointing out that he had attended the last 3 company events and had spoken up in every meeting he'd been invited to, but he could see from Vanessa's expression that she had already mentally ended the conversation. I appreciate the feedback, he said finally. I'll work on being more visible. As he left Vanessa's office, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The feedback was vague, subjective, and didn't align with any of his formal evaluations. It felt like Vanessa was searching for reasons, rather than providing genuine guidance. Back at his desk, Daniel opened his project management software and looked at the current team assignments. Mark had been assigned to lead the new mobile app initiative, a high-visibility project that would involve coordination with the marketing team and direct client interaction. Daniel had expressed interest in that project during his last one-on-one with Vanessa, but had been told they needed his expertise on back-end maintenance instead. Daniel took a deep breath and turned back to his code. Maybe Vanessa was right. Maybe he needed to be more visible, more vocal about his contributions. He decided to give her feedback a chance before jumping to conclusions. Over the next few weeks, Daniel made a conscious effort to be more visible. He spoke up more in meetings, volunteered for cross-functional initiatives, and even organized a lunch and learn session on the new architecture patterns he'd implemented. Yet the more he tried to increase his visibility, the more he noticed a disturbing pattern. In the weekly architecture meeting, he proposed a solution to a persistent caching problem, only to have it dismissed with minimal discussion. 20 minutes later, Mark suggested essentially the same approach, and Vanessa immediately praised it as exactly what we need. During a planning session for the next quarter, Daniel's request to lead the new authentication system overhaul was denied, because Vanessa said he was too valuable in his current role. The next day, Mark was announced as the lead for that exact project. Most troubling, Daniel began noticing that he wasn't being invited to certain meetings that his role should have warranted. When he asked about a strategy session he'd heard mentioned, his team lead awkwardly explained it was just a small group thing for specific perspectives. Later, Daniel learned that Mark had been there, despite having less experience with the systems being discussed. Daniel started keeping a journal, documenting these incidents with dates, times, and specific details. At first, he told himself it was just to ensure he wasn't imagining things. But as the journal entries accumulated, a clear pattern emerged. During a rare coffee break with Elena, a senior QA engineer who had been with the company for 7 years, Daniel cautiously brought up his observations. "Have you ever noticed that certain people seem to have an easier path to advancement here?" he asked, keeping his tone casual. Elena looked around before responding in a lowered voice. "You mean like Mark's promotion?" "Yeah, that wasn't exactly a surprise to those of us who've been here a while." "Look, Daniel, you're good. Really good. Everyone on the technical side knows it. But TechVision has always had this unofficial hierarchy. It's not just about the work you do. The right schools, the right connections. Haven't you noticed that all the senior developers went to either Stanford, MIT, or Berkeley? Or that most of them knew someone here before they were hired?" Elena sighed. "We lost 3 really talented developers last year for similar reasons. They hit the same ceiling you're hitting now." "Unfair? Yeah, it is. But it's also reality. Vanessa and Mark went to the same university, did you know that? They're in the same alumni network. They go to the same tech meetups outside of work. I've seen them having drinks together on weekends." This information hit Daniel like a physical blow. He'd always believed that TechVision's culture was genuinely meritocratic. It was right there in their company values. Advancement based on achievement, not politics. That evening, Daniel did some research. He looked up the LinkedIn profiles of every senior developer and technical manager at the company. Elena was right. There was a clear pattern in educational backgrounds and previous employers. More disturbing was how many of them had overlapping networks before joining TechVision. Daniel expanded his documentation. He started noting who was invited to which meetings, whose ideas were implemented, who received credit in company announcements. He also began paying closer attention to other employees who seemed to face similar barriers. Raj, a brilliant developer who had joined from a small coding bootcamp rather than a prestigious university, had been kept on the same project for 2 years, despite repeatedly asking for new challenges. Sophia, one of the few women on the engineering team, had her architectural proposals consistently scrutinized more heavily than those from her male counterparts. Both had performance reviews that praised their technical skills, but cited vague concerns about leadership potential. The pattern was undeniable, and it extended beyond just Daniel's situation. There was an invisible ceiling at TechVision, and it had nothing to do with ability. The TechVision quarterly all-hands meeting was always a big production. The entire company gathered in the main auditorium to hear updates from leadership, celebrate achievements, and showcase major projects. This quarter, the spotlight was on the Atlas project, a complete overhaul of the company's core data processing system that Daniel had architected and led for the past 6 months. Daniel had spent countless late nights on Atlas, solving complex performance issues and designing an elegant new architecture that reduced processing time by 78%. He had trained the team, written extensive documentation, and personally handled the trickiest parts of the migration. It had been exhausting but rewarding work, and he was proud of what they'd accomplished. As he took his seat in the auditorium, Daniel felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was exactly the kind of visibility Vanessa had said he needed. The CTO would be there, along with the entire executive team. It was a chance for his work to be recognized at the highest levels. The presentation began with the usual company updates. Finally, the CTO announced, "And now, I'm excited to hear about the Atlas project, which has already shown remarkable improvements in our core processing capabilities." Vanessa walked onto the stage, followed by Mark. Daniel waited for his name to be called, but it never came. Today we're going to show you how the Atlas project, led by Mark Johnson, has transformed our data processing infrastructure, Vanessa began. Daniel felt as if he'd been doused with ice water. Led by Mark Johnson? Mark had contributed to the project, certainly, but he joined halfway through and had primarily worked on the front-end components, a small fraction of the overall system. As the presentation continued, Daniel's disbelief turned to anger. Mark was describing architectural decisions that Daniel had made, explaining them as if they were his own. Slides showing performance improvements that Daniel had achieved were presented with Mark's name in the footer. Then came the technical questions from the audience. A senior architect from another division asked about the approach to handling concurrent processing under heavy load, a particularly complex aspect of the system that Daniel had spent weeks perfecting. Mark hesitated, clearly unprepared for the question. Well, we implemented a custom queuing system that prioritizes transactions based on several factors. His explanation veered into vague generalities, and Daniel could see the confusion on the architect's face. After an awkward moment, Mark added, Daniel might be able to provide more specifics on that particular component. All eyes turned to Daniel, who was caught off guard by the sudden attention. He stood and provided a clear, concise explanation of the system he'd designed, complete with the specific challenges they'd overcome and how the solution scaled under different conditions. The architect nodded appreciatively. Impressive work. That's exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need more of. The rest of the presentation proceeded awkwardly, with Mark struggling to answer technical questions and increasingly deferring to Daniel. By the end, it was obvious to anyone paying attention who had really led the project. As the audience filed out after the presentation, Daniel overheard Vanessa speaking to the department head near the stage. Mark really pulled the team through on this one, she was saying. There were some technical challenges, but he managed to keep everything on track and deliver exceptional results. Daniel felt something snap inside him. He had maintained his composure for months, had tried to play by the unspoken rules, had given Vanessa and the company every benefit of the doubt. But this was too much. Can we talk about what just happened? He asked, struggling to keep his voice level. Vanessa glanced at her watch. I have another meeting in 5 minutes. Can this wait? No, it can't. You just presented Mark as the lead on a project that I architected, designed, and implemented. He joined halfway through and worked on one component. Why would you misrepresent that to the entire company? Vanessa's expression hardened. I didn't misrepresent anything. Mark coordinated the team efforts and served as the project liaison to management. That's leadership. Leadership. Daniel couldn't keep the incredulity from his voice. He couldn't even answer basic questions about how the system works. I trained him on concepts he should have already known as a mid-level developer. Meanwhile, I designed the entire architecture, solved the performance bottlenecks, and wrote 70% of the codebase. This is exactly the attitude problem I've been concerned about, Daniel, Vanessa said coldly. Technical contribution is important, but being a team player is essential at the senior level. Mark understands that. He shares credit, he builds relationships, he represents the team well to management. Daniel, usually composed and diplomatic, finally lost his cool. My attitude problem? I've led this project from concept to completion while training Mark on basic concepts he should already know. What exactly is the real reason I keep getting overlooked? The words hung in the air between them. In that moment, everything became crystal clear to Daniel. No amount of technical excellence, no level of contribution, no demonstration of leadership would ever be enough. The barrier wasn't his skills or his visibility or his attitude. It was that he wasn't part of the predetermined in-group. Daniel, Vanessa called after him, her tone suddenly conciliatory. Don't take this the wrong way. You're a valuable technical contributor. Just focus on your strengths and be patient. But Daniel was done being patient. As he walked back to his desk, a new determination formed in his mind. He wouldn't quit in anger, or file a complaint that would likely go nowhere. No, he would respond strategically, methodically, and effectively. That evening, Daniel sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open, organizing his thoughts. His initial impulse to resign immediately had faded, replaced by something more calculated. If the system was rigged, he wouldn't try to win by playing by its rules. He would change the game entirely. First, he reviewed his documentation of the past few months. He had dates, times, specific incidents, and patterns of behavior that painted a clear picture of systemic favoritism. But documentation alone wouldn't change anything. He needed a comprehensive strategy. The next day, Daniel began implementing his plan. He started by reaching out to Raj for lunch. File. "I've noticed you've been on the same project for a while," Daniel said carefully, after they'd settled in at a nearby cafe. "Have you asked for new challenges?" Raj laughed without humor. "Only about a dozen times. Always the same answer. They need my stability on the current project. Meanwhile, guys with half my experience get rotated through all the interesting new initiatives." "I've been experiencing something similar," Daniel admitted. "It seems like certain people have an easier path here regardless of performance." Raj studied Daniel for a moment before speaking. "You know Jason and May who left last year? Same story. Both brilliant. Both hit the ceiling. Both got tired of watching less qualified people move up because they went to the right schools or knew the right people." Over the next few weeks, Daniel had similar conversations with other colleagues who had faced similar barriers. Sophia from the architecture team, Eduardo from DevOps, Aisha from product management. Each conversation confirmed what he already suspected and helped build a network of people who understood the reality beneath TechVision's meritocratic facade. Daniel also reached out to former employees who had left under similar circumstances. A coffee with Jason revealed that he was now thriving at a company with transparent promotion criteria. A video call with May showed her leading a team at a startup where her technical expertise was genuinely valued. "The best revenge is success elsewhere," May told him. TechVision only changes when they start losing talent they can't replace. Taking this advice to heart, Daniel began working on his public profile. He started contributing to open-source projects related to his expertise, submitting thoughtful pull requests, and helping solve complex issues. He revived his technical blog, publishing detailed articles about architecture patterns and performance optimization techniques he'd developed. He volunteered to speak at a local tech meetup, giving a presentation on the caching solution he'd implemented at TechVision, carefully anonymized to comply with confidentiality agreements. The talk was well received, leading to invitations to speak at 2 more events. Within the company, Daniel made subtle but important changes to how he worked. He began sending concise email summaries after every significant contribution. "I've completed the implementation of the concurrent processing system we discussed. Key features include: all code is fully documented, and unit tests are at 98% coverage. You can find the implementation in the main repository under /src/core/processing. Let me know if you have any questions or need clarification on any aspect of the implementation." These emails served multiple purposes. They created a clear record of his contributions, made it harder for others to claim credit for his work, and demonstrated his communication skills, all while appearing to be simply helpful updates to the team. He also began adding detailed comments and documentation to his code, not just explaining how it worked, but why certain design decisions were made. This served both as knowledge transfer to the team and as a permanent record of his architectural thinking. In meetings, Daniel adopted a new approach. Rather than just speaking up more often, he made sure his contributions were memorable and tied directly to business value. When proposing solutions, he explicitly connected them to company goals and metrics. This approach would not only solve our immediate technical challenge, but also align with our Q3 objective of reducing operational costs. Based on my calculations, we could see approximately 23% reduction in cloud infrastructure expenses. By framing his technical expertise in terms of business impact, Daniel made his contributions harder to dismiss or overlook. 3 months into Daniel's strategic approach, things began to shift, not just for him, but throughout the company. His technical blog had gained a following in the industry, with several posts reaching the front page of Hacker News. His open-source contributions had earned him recognition from respected developers at major tech companies. At local tech events, people were beginning to recognize his name and seek out his insights. Recruiters started reaching out on LinkedIn with increasing frequency. At first, Daniel politely declined, focusing instead on building his reputation. But as the opportunities improved in quality, he began taking exploratory calls, carefully assessing potential next steps. Within TechVision, subtle changes were emerging. Raj, inspired by Daniel's approach, had started documenting his own contributions more explicitly and had begun speaking at internal knowledge-sharing sessions. Sophia had adopted similar strategies and had recently pushed back when a male colleague attempted to present her architecture proposal as a collaborative effort. Other overlooked employees began following suit, creating a quiet movement of people refusing to let their work go unrecognized. They shared tactics in hushed conversations over lunch or in private Slack messages. Document everything. Create public evidence of your skills. Build your network outside the company. The shift didn't go unnoticed by management. In a department meeting, the CTO mentioned the impressive external contributions coming from the engineering team, specifically citing Daniel's recent article that had been shared widely in the industry. Vanessa shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The real turning point came when Cloudscape, one of TechVision's largest clients, specifically requested Daniel for a critical project. "We've been following his work on distributed systems," their CTO told TechVision's account manager. "His approach to the exact challenges we're facing is exactly what we need. We want him leading the technical implementation." This put TechVision in a difficult position. They couldn't refuse a major client's request, but it disrupted the careful hierarchy they had maintained. In the end, they had no choice but to assign Daniel as the technical lead for the Cloudscape project, a role typically reserved for senior developers. At the next all-hands meeting, Vanessa announced the Cloudscape project with Daniel as technical lead, framing it as evidence of the company's commitment to developing talent. "We're proud to see Daniel's growth over recent months," she said, smiling tightly. "This is a perfect example of how we nurture our people and prepare them for greater responsibilities." Daniel maintained a neutral expression, but inwardly he noted the attempt to reframe his self-created opportunity as the company's deliberate development plan. The narrative was shifting, and management was trying to maintain control of it. The department head, a VP named Robert, who rarely involved himself in team-level dynamics, began asking questions about promotion patterns after the meeting. Daniel learned through Elena that he had requested data on performance reviews versus promotion rates, broken down by various factors including educational background. "There's some concern at the executive level about retention," Elena told Daniel during their now regular coffee breaks. "They've noticed that people with certain backgrounds seem to be leaving at higher rates, regardless of their performance ratings." Vanessa and several other middle managers pushed back against the scrutiny, defending their, quote, holistic approach to evaluations and promotions. Others, including some senior developers who had benefited from the existing system, began to acknowledge the problems more openly. "Mark actually approached me yesterday," Raj told Daniel one afternoon. "He wanted to know how I implemented that streaming data solution last year. He seemed different. Less entitled, more willing to learn." As the Cloudscape project progressed, Daniel's technical leadership became increasingly visible both within TechVision and in the broader industry. The client regularly praised his work to TechVision's executive team, and his architecture decisions were being referenced by other companies facing similar challenges. Then came the email that changed everything. A VP of engineering at Horizon Technologies, a respected company known for its engineering culture, reached out directly. "I've been following your work for some time, particularly your recent articles on distributed system architecture and your contributions to the Reactor project. Your approach to solving complex technical challenges while maintaining system elegance is exactly the kind of thinking we value at Horizon. We're looking for a senior architect to lead our core platform team, and I believe you would be an excellent fit. The role comes with significant technical ownership, a team of talented engineers, and the opportunity to shape our technical direction. The compensation package includes a base salary of $195,000, equity worth approximately $150,000 at current valuation, and our standard benefits package." The offer represented a 40% increase over Daniel's current compensation and a Title II levels above his current position. After several interviews and careful consideration, Daniel decided to accept. When he submitted his resignation letter to Vanessa, her reaction was immediate and revealing. "This is very disappointing, Daniel. We were just about to discuss a promotion for you. In fact, I can match Horizon's offer right now, senior developer title and a 30% raise. We value your contributions and don't want to lose you." The sudden reversal confirmed everything Daniel had suspected. His value had always been recognized. They just hadn't expected him to have options. "I appreciate the counteroffer," Daniel said calmly, "but my decision isn't just about title or compensation." Vanessa looked genuinely confused. "Then what is it about?" "If it's about the Cloudscape project, we can ensure you lead similar initiatives going forward." "It's about fairness and recognition," Daniel replied. "For the past year, I've watched less qualified people receive opportunities and advancement based on factors unrelated to performance. I've had to create external validation of my skills just to receive the recognition that should have come from within. That's not a healthy professional environment. Vanessa's expression hardened. That's a serious accusation, Daniel. We have a fair and thorough evaluation process. Do we? Daniel asked. Then why did it take a major client specifically requesting me and an external offer for you to suddenly decide I was ready for promotion? The same skills and contributions were there all along. In his final 2 weeks, Daniel was meticulous about knowledge transfer. He created comprehensive documentation, held training sessions for team members, and ensured a smooth transition for the Cloudscape project. His professionalism, despite the circumstances, didn't go unnoticed by the team or by upper management. On his last day, several colleagues took him out for lunch. The conversation revealed that his departure had created ripples throughout the organization. Robert has called for a complete review of the promotion process, Elena told him. There's talk about implementing blind initial resume screening and creating more objective advancement criteria. Raj added, Vanessa has been called into a lot of meetings with HR lately. The rumor is they're looking at patterns in her team's advancement and retention rates. 6 months into his new role at Horizon Technologies, Daniel was thriving. The company's transparent promotion process, diverse leadership team, and genuine commitment to meritocracy created an environment where his skills were properly valued. He led a team working on cutting-edge distributed systems with the authority to make key architectural decisions and the support to implement them effectively. At a major tech conference where he was invited to speak, Daniel ran into Mark in the hallway between sessions. Daniel, great to see you, Mark said with what seemed like genuine warmth. I saw you're speaking on distributed transaction management. I'm looking forward to it. They chatted briefly about the conference before Mark added, Things have changed a lot at TechVision since you left. Vanessa was reassigned to a different department. Robert implemented a new promotion review process with anonymous technical evaluations and a diverse committee. They're even tracking promotion rates across different demographics now. Mark nodded, looking somewhat uncomfortable. Look, I know things weren't fair when you were there. I benefited from a system that overlooked people like you in favor of people like me. I didn't create that system, but I didn't question it either. He paused. I should have. Daniel appreciated the acknowledgement, even if it came late. The important thing is that it's changing now. Beyond his technical role, Daniel found another purpose that gave meaning to his experience. He began mentoring junior developers from underrepresented backgrounds, helping them navigate workplace politics and build strategies for recognition. Document everything, he would tell them. Create public evidence of your skills. Build your network outside your company. And most importantly, know your worth. Don't let an unfair system define your value. One evening, as Daniel wrapped up a mentoring session with a promising young developer who reminded him of himself 5 years earlier, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The unfairness he had faced at TechVision had been real and painful. It had challenged his belief in meritocracy and forced him to confront uncomfortable realities about how the tech industry often worked. Yet his response to that unfairness had ultimately led him to a better position, a more fulfilling purpose, and the opportunity to help create change beyond his individual situation. He had transformed a negative experience into a force for positive change, not just for himself, but for others facing similar barriers. As he packed up his laptop, Daniel smiled at the irony. In trying to keep him in his place, TechVision had inadvertently set him free. The invisible ceiling that was meant to limit him had instead become the foundation for something much greater than he had initially imagined for himself.